Hello everyone, my name is Ahmed Bahmar. Today we are going to present how privatization for British Petroleum was a solution for market failure and a hope for sustainability. This is our agenda for today. These are the topics we're going to discuss. First, what is the definition of market failure? Market failure is when the business fails and get out of the market. And market failure in general happens when there is inefficiency happen in the quantity demanded or the quantity supplied. Inefficiency results in a market failure. There is two types of market failure: complete market failure or partial market failure. The complete market failure, which is the stopping of producing the good in the market. The partial market failure is the inefficiency of producing the quantity or the price of it. Privatization is the transformation of the ownership of the company from the public sector to private investors. And the governments mainly do this to reduce the costs or to reduce the debts and the costs they are spending. The aim of this presentation is to analyze the privatization case of British Petroleum Company and how this affected the company, suggest policies that can improve the competitiveness of the company in the market, in addition to explaining the relationship between market failure and the SDGs. Let us talk about the literature review. And first, we have the types of market failure. First, we have asymmetric information. Asymmetric information is the false information regarding the production or the consumption. It also affects the prices, as if when consumers get or receive false prices or false information, they would buy the product at a higher price or lower price, which caused inefficiency that resulted in market failure. Second, we have concentrated consumer market power control. This means that the consumers are controlling the market and setting the prices according to their satisfaction level, which of course resulted in inefficiency. Abuse of monopoly power, the same as concentrated consumer market power, but for the suppliers. When the supply has a monopoly power, he is controlling the quantity supplied and the price, so inefficiency also results in this case. Externalities is the effect happened in the third party. We have two types: positive externality and negative externality. The positive externality is the social benefit that happened. For example, a good education, which resulted in a good, high-skilled labor, and a good health system, which results in more healthier labor force. Equity and fairness issues. This is regarding the gap between the consumers, which means that a product is for a specific income level of consumers, which means that there are many consumers will be excluded from this market, which also results in efficiency. Then we have productive or allocative inefficiency. It's the inefficiency of resource production, such as the food resource. Then we have the Sustainable Development Goals. Sustainable Development Goals has been established in the year 2015 by the United Nations members. Its main objective is they are concerning the improvement of the human well-being and reducing the climate change and trying to treat the environmental problems. Then the types of privatization. We have three main types of privatization. First, complete privatization, and it's the main type that is used in the world, which is the transformation of and selling the assets and the shares of the company to private investors. It could be done through three ways: share issue privatization, which is selling the shares of the company in the stock market for private investors; asset sale privatization, selling the assets of the company to private investors; voucher privatization, and here the government is issuing the shares of the corporation to the people to the consumers in free costs for free or at a very low price. Second type, we have privatization of operations, and here we are privatizing the management and the operations of the company only, but the owners are still the government and the public sector. But the government doing this for more revenues, and they are using mainly in the sports sector. Third type, we have the user contracts, and here the government make agreements with the private sector to do specific tasks or jobs and pay them from the taxes consumers are paying, such as the data analytics and the social security teams. Now let us talk about the analysis of British Petroleum Privatization case. Brief history about the company. The oil since the 19,000s became a very powerful weapon, and Britain decided to enter the market, as in 1908 they purchased many shares in the Anglo-Persian Oil Company. Then in 1913 the company have been entered a financial crisis. Then 1914 British Petroleum became a partner in this company, or the British government became a partner in the Anglo-Persian Oil Company. In 1935, the company changed its name to Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, and finally in 1954, the company changed its name to British Petroleum Company and took this logo as their logo at that time. Then the reasons for its privatization. Here is different eras. We have first from 1950 to 1960, starting by the 1950 when the coup happened in Iran. The new Iranian leader refused the existence of the British government and decided to nationalize the oil company. However, he failed to do so due to the hard restrictions imposed by the British government, which decreased the oil production of Iran from 6,600 barrels per day to only 20,000 barrels per day, and the British government themselves got affected by this action. Moving on to the year 1956, when the former President Gamal Abdel Nasser decided to nationalize the Suez Canal, it was a crisis for the whole Europe, as 2/3 of the European oil was passing through this canal. So Britain, France, and Israel decided to attack Egypt, and by this move, the British government also lost many things, and the war failed at last. Then moving on from the year 1970 until 1977, starting from the year 1969, the Libyan coup has existed, and Colonel Gaddafi became raised to power. In 1971, he decided to nationalize the oil company and British Petroleum shares in the company, which affected hardly the company's production. In 1972, most of the Middle East countries do the same thing and forced the oil companies to give up 25% of their shares in the oil sector. And the crisis happened in the 1973 with the existence of, or with the starting of October 73 war, when the Arabian OPEC countries decided to embargo and cut the exportation to the European and United States countries due to the war, of course, and this affected the economy and the oil sector in Europe. In 1974, we will not see that in 1973 and 1974, the oil prices per barrel was increasing. However, the British government didn't benefit from this increase due to the cut in production and the embargo that was imposed by the Arabian countries. In the year 1975, due to the previous events, the British Petroleum crude oil production decreased to only 10% due to what happened. Actually, the past events of the Middle East countries affected the growth of the British economy, and they have asked the IMF 3 times for a loan. However, they were refusing every time, until they required from them to decrease the public borrowing from 11 billion sterling pound to only 7 billion sterling pound. So the government at the time decided to sell the first 17% of British Petroleum company in the stock market, rather than raising the taxes to cover the deficit. Then in the year 1979, there is a new government elected, and they also sold 5% of the company's share. And in 1981, the government decided to sell another 7% after they decided not to share in the company's right issues. In the year 1983, the government continued their privatization program and sold another 7.5% of the company's share. And lastly, in the year 1987, they completed their program and sold the rest shares, which was 31.5%. The total revenues from the privatization process for British Petroleum Company was valued 6 billion sterling pound, more than 6 billion sterling pound, and for privatizing the whole oil sector, the revenues were 8,511 million of sterling pounds. Now let us take a look on British Petroleum after the privatization. The new management in the year 1987 announced expansion policies, and they purchased 49% of the American Standard Oil Company and the Petroleum Oil Company. They took it all in the same year, and actually in 1989 they announced their new logo, and they announced that they will explore in new markets such as in Angola, Azerbaijan, and Colombia. However, in the 1990, the company was hit by financial crisis due to the decrease in the oil prices and the cumulative debt that was in the company, and this resulted in quitting the management at the time. The new management in 1992 announced their new financial enhancements and their plans to decrease the company's debts, raise profits, and increase the capital expenditure. And in 1998, they purchased 10% of the Russian oil company, and by entering in the 2000s, they increased their expansion in the USA, Germany, and Russia. Then in 2005, they announced their low-carbon investment plan. And they made many contract agreements with the Chinese and Iraq oil companies, and since 2010 they are sharing and entering very important projects happening around the world. And today, British Petroleum Company is the third largest oil company in the world. Now, the market failure that happened that the government failed to cope with the crisis that happened in the oil sector in the 70s and 80s, which drove them to privatize the company, affected the employment rate in the UK at that time, as we will not see the decrease in the public sector employment by the end of the 1980s. Over 1 million employees lost their jobs due to the privatization program. And this affecting the goal number 8 in the SDGs, as when the unemployment rate increased, mainly the economic growth of the country decrease, both of them. And this goal number 8, which is the decent work and economic growth. And actually, the SDG goals were not established in the 80s. However, the same concept and the same results and effects of the privatization existed, whether in the past or now. They will affect the unemployment and by increasing it. And indirectly, it affects the sustainable goal number 1, as when the unemployment increase, mainly the poverty rate increase. Now, there are some improvement policies that the company could have to be first on the market, the company must increase its alliances and agreements with the world countries and different continents. The company need to invest more in the petrochemical products and renewable energy field too. Moreover, the most influential action should be taken is to increase the investments in the technological sector, in the oil field and other products. To sum up the main ideas, we have talked about, explain the definition of the market failure is when the business get out of the market, and the types, there are two types of market failure, complete market failure and partial market failure, and the definition of privatization. Then we move to the literature review, and we have explained the types of market failure, the SDGs, and the types of privatization. Then we explained the reasons and brief history about the British Petroleum company and the reasons for privatizing it. And we took an overall look on the company's situation after privatization. Then we explained the effect of market failure on the SDGs. And lastly, we explained the policies that the company needed to enhance and improve its performance. We are talking about the third largest company in the oil company in the world, not company in a bad situation, but in order to be number one, they need to invest more in the R&D and technology sector and make new agreements, as they generating profits about $12.86 billion per year. So, and this they could invest it, and this profit could increase more and more due to the increasing the oil prices, due to the political conflicts happening in the world today. But they have to do this if they want to be number one. They need to increase their competitiveness to face Aramco company, which is the company number one in the oil sector, and they are generating a profit of about $110 billion last year. So to compete a company like this, it takes time, it takes effort, and more spend. Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.